So now that you have selected a file that you are going to 3D print or created one, we need to give that file to a program that will turn it into something that the 3D printer can read and produce. And so what you want to do is Google search Dremel Printcloud, and it will be the first link that comes after you do that Google search. We want to click there. I believe that you will be able to sign in with Google just like I am. And then you'll get a page that looks like this. Yours will look different than mine because I have printed a ton of stuff, and so yours will likely be blank in this area. So what we want to do is click Upload New, and then sometimes it will say project. You don't want it to say project, you want it to say single file, or have single file selected, and then you want to choose your file. And so I've got to go on a bit of a search here to find where my files are. And so let's say that I wanted to do this Flexi Frog. So I choose the file, it's going to take it a moment to upload it, and then I say save and go to my files. It's going to pause for a moment and say progress. The bigger the file that you have, the longer the progress is going to be. And we want to pay very close attention to the name here. So this is Flexi Frog STL. I always want to hit repair. So what this is going to do is make sure that there are no errors and stuff with the print so that it does not get halfway done and then fail in the 3D printer. That still happens sometimes, but hitting repair does help stop that from happening. And so now you'll notice that I have two files here, the Flexi Frog and the Flexi Frog Repaired. We have repaired it, that's why it's got the word repaired at the end. That's the one we want to use. So step 2, we're going to say we want to go to the layout, and it's going to create the Flexi Frog here on the build plate for us. There are a couple things we want to make sure that we do. Number 1 is click on bed, and the other is click center. And it just so happens to be that this frog was in the correct spot, but let's say you had a print come in like this. That's never going to work. If you click on bed and center, that will help stop from having any sort of problems with the print being in the wrong position. So you can see I was able to move it by grabbing these little arrows and pulling in the direction that the arrow is pointing, or the opposite direction. We could also rotate it. And the idea here with rotating it is we want as much of the figure to be touching the build plate as possible. And so this, for instance, would be a terrible way to print this, because it only has that 1 or 2 tiny points of contact at the toes, and it would require a ton of support structure, which is not good. And then it would also be not having a very good chance of staying stuck to the build plate. And so the more we can have directly touching the build plate, the better our chances that it's actually going to print correctly are. So again, you can rotate it if you've got something that looks like it would print better if you laid it on its side. You can do that. The next is scale, and we can change the scale of this by either putting in the direct size or by changing the percent down here. Let's say that I thought this Flexi Frog was too big and I wanted to change it to have a scale of 60. If I click 60 on the X, it only changes the scale on the X. What we want to do to keep things proportional, or have it still look the same, is to come down here where it says scale to percent. And then if I change that to 60, it will make all the dimensions 60% of what they originally were, and this frog will still look correct. You'll notice that it did lift up off the build plate, so again, I want to go back to on bed and center. We always want to do that before we get ready to print something. The printer, camera, undo, on bed, extra, add file, all that stuff is something you will probably never use. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Slice. We do not want to click Save. We want to click Save and Slice. It's going to have some parameters here. I would leave this alone, and I would just click Slice. Now you'll notice we have another file here. We have the Flexi Frog Repaired. There's a repaired here. Now we have this one that says G code. The G code is the file type that the 3D printer can read. And so that is the file that you need to put onto your thumb drive for your 3D printer to go ahead and be able to print it. Do not put this one on the thumb drive, do not put this one or this one on the thumb drive. The 3D printer will not be able to read any of those. The only one that it will be able to read is this G3 Drem file. And I don't know what build does, so I just click that. If I click preview, it's going to bring me back here and kind of show the way that the printer is going to make this thing out of layers. That's kind of cool. But anyway, yes, that is how you use the Dremel Printcloud to get your 3D prints set up and ready for the printer.